Ring ring, who's calling? Before we get to today's video, I want to take a moment to talk about Patreon. That's right, we are on Patreon now, and we have a bunch of tiers with a bunch of great rewards. You can subscribe and get things like early access to all reactions, depending on your tier, depends on which reactions you get early access to. You can vote on polls exclusive to patrons that will help determine future reaction series and more. You will get to just have various choices in terms of like getting to choose future reactions I react to, getting to choose first impressions I check out, all kinds of different rewards, and possibly more coming in the future. We're still new at this. We're still figuring things out. It's a process. It's a process. But we have multiple tiers, so whatever you would be able to donate, if you're able and willing to donate, is appreciated. It helps me out, it helps the channel out, it helps us grow. It's going to help just, standardly. It's just something new to check out. Plus, if you like getting the reactions early, that's also a plus. But it is optional. If you're unable to do it, that's completely fine. All reactions will come to YouTube just a little bit later, a week later or so. So that all being said, thank you as always so much, and let's get on with today's video. And with that being said, hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Black Phone 2. So this is a donation reward for Venom, but more importantly, not that that's not important, thank you Venom for donating, but this is also the first reaction of our January end of the month movie week. So for those of you who may be new either to the channel or the Patreon, I guess, but if you're watching this, you're only watching on YouTube. The end of the month movie week is where at the end of the month, we do an entire week of movies. Between Monday and Friday, every day gets a film. This is something we did last year in 2025, except during the holiday season, which we took off for obvious reasons. But we're getting back into it now, and you're seeing this not the week that you might be thinking, the typical end of the week. You're seeing this, let me make sure I get my dates right here. You're seeing this at the beginning of the month, in February. You should be seeing this between Monday the 2nd to Friday the 6th. This one specifically on Monday. And the reason for that is, since you're on YouTube, those of you who are watching these pre-thoughts, you get this a week later than everyone else. See, at the start of the year, we opened up a Patreon. And those on Patreon get early access to not just movies, but all reactions. And so the way to integrate that in to a monthly movie week, the best way that I could think of that made the most sense is that at the end of the month, I do the movie week for Patreon, and then the first week of the next month, they come to YouTube. So it's still end of the month movie week as of when I'm recording them and everything. It's just that YouTube gets them a week later due to just having to figure something out with the Patreon format that we have going. So yeah, that's how it's going to be for now, unless we can figure something else out, but that's the gist of it. But let's actually talk a bit about this. So this movie obviously is a sequel to The Black Phone. I don't know why they didn't call it The Black Phone 2, why they took off the in there, but it's a sequel to that, and a sequel that I don't know what people think about. I don't think I've heard anyone actually talk about this movie, good or bad, so I have no idea what the consensus is. Mind you, as always, I prefer that. I prefer to be as spoiler-free and as blind in movies that I go into, and that includes not liking to hear what other people's opinions are whenever possible. because it gives me a entirely blank slate to judge the movie on its own merits, in my opinion. And so I think that's going to help with that a lot here. But in that kind of regard, um, excuse me, in that kind of regard, this is a movie that did not warrant a sequel. And I say that as someone who notably enjoyed the first movie. Wasn't perfect, but I very much enjoyed it. But it's not a movie that needs a sequel. And this is a big problem with Hollywood these days, is that they anytime an original property exists, Hollywood has a sequel already like planned, even if a sequel doesn't make sense, like lore, character, or just general sense wise. Hollywood wants to have sequels because it makes them more money. But a lot of times, you may have noticed, especially in recent years, it doesn't really help anything. A lot of these sequels don't quite work out the way that, the industry wants them to, in terms of making more money. A lot of times these sequels are seen as, less than the original. And part of this does come down to the entire culture surrounding, people judging movies before they came out. Like back in the day, like before the time of like all this critic stuff, people would have seen movies like this a lot more often, and did. But I'll give you an example. In the modern day, Back to the Future 2 would not have done well. Because people would have, like, shared everything and shared their thoughts ahead of time on social media and whatnot. And because of that, it wouldn't have, like, gotten the viewership. Because there's a lot of people who would have just chosen not to see it. There's a lot of critics who would have badmouthed it as not being as good as the first. And it just wouldn't have succeeded in the long run. And by the way, I'm not saying that Back to the Future Part 2 isn't as good as the first. I think it actually is. The only one that I really am not the biggest fan of is Part 3. I think it's a little bit of a step down. But that's neither here nor there, really. The point is, sequels just don't do super well most of the time. There are exceptions. There are always exceptions. Zootopia 2 apparently has done really good. Neja 2 is the highest grossing animated movie ever. And, like, obviously that shows how well that did. But there's always exceptions. For the most part, most of these sequels don't do super well anymore. Just because of, critics going online just saying they're not going to be as good. But again, I actually surprisingly haven't heard anything about this. Like critic-wise or just even regular viewers. I haven't heard anyone talk about this. That could be good, that could be bad, that could mean practically nothing. I don't know. But what I do know is that I do know the grabber returning in this is supernaturally linked, which obviously would have to be the case considering he died in the first movie. If you're watching this, I assume you would know what happened in the first movie, so. But yeah, there's also the aspect of, in the first movie, he was, this normal kidnapper and serial killer. He wasn't supernatural in any way. Which, I mean, that's not the only time this kind of thing has happened. Because it's like you even have like the Terrifier movies where Art the Clown in the first movie wasn't supernatural. That was him being, brought back by the demon in the second movie at the very beginning. Or I guess technically at the very end of the first movie. But the point still stands. It's like he was a normal, like, psycho ass serial killer at first. And the same thing goes here. I feel like just the idea of bringing back a horror villain by supernatural means is just so outplayed at this point. It's been done to death. It's the classic with like the likes of even Freddy Krueger and whatnot. Um, it's just like, just stop. It's completely needless. And honestly, I think it would have been more interesting if this were like sort of, if this acted as more of like a, not a direct sequel, but more of like a sequel centering around a new villain, a new grabber. Maybe someone heard about what had happened and like, because they're a psychopath, was inspired by it. I mean, yes, that's been done a lot too. Obviously, nothing is original anymore. But at least it would be something that's not as overdone. At least it would be something that's a little more interesting, rather than just, supernatural resurrection again. Because that's just always what they go for. Um, all in all, I'm just hoping that it's good. Because even if I have a gripe here and there with like an element of it, I mean, it can still be good, and that's my biggest hopes for this film. So I don't really know exactly what to expect. I don't know if we're gonna have like new kids. I don't know if the kids from the previous movie are gonna return. I don't know how far this is gonna be stepped up in terms of like violence and gore and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know. But I am very curious. I feel like if we're going to do this, let's do it right and go like really ham and crazy with it. Because at least then we can have some fun, you know? At least then we're not like being overly boring, for lack of a better way to put it, if I'm being honest. Um, so I guess at this point we should probably get into it. Just as a note, again, for those who are new to the entire end of the month movie week, there is no theme this month. Normally, I would have a theme of some sort if I can figure something out. Even if it's just like, oh, these are all from this one genre or something. But there's no theme this time. Um, it's just gonna be 5 movies between today and, well, yeah, today and Friday either way, that I wanted to get to. And so, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I will announce, as long as I don't forget, because I have done that in the past, I plan to announce in the last video, the Friday movie reaction, what the next month's theme will be. And just as a note as well, um, there will be no regular Saturday Sunday movie reactions this week because of this. Like, this is taking over all movie reactions for this week. So I think that's everything. Um, I'm excited to get into this, but before we do, I do quickly want to remind you that at the beginning of the year, we did start up our Patreon. You can get early access to a bunch of different reactions, all of the reactions we do, really. And it just depends on your tier as to which reactions you get early access to. The $5 tier, you get movie reactions. $10 tier adds in, with the movie reactions already, series reactions, and so on and so forth. You can see all the information about all the tiers and all the benefits they provide down in the description below on the Patreon page itself. So that being said, let's check out today's reaction and see what we have in store. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. Welcome to the Afterthoughts, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I've talked about this before, but one of the best feelings when I'm watching a movie, or sometimes it happens with a show or playing a game as well, but especially when I'm like watching a movie, and especially if it's a sequel to a movie. One of the best feelings for me is being proven wrong. And I was proven wrong on this movie in 2 separate ways. So the first way that I was proven wrong, it kind of goes in line with what I was saying, like in the pre-thoughts and everything. For those of you who are watching on Patreon, just as a little recap, I was talking about how I didn't think this movie was necessary, that the first film didn't need a sequel, and I felt like bringing him back in a supernatural way was just kind of retreading old territory and stuff that's been done plenty of times before. Well, I was wrong in my concerns and worries over this film because of stuff like that. Because the film proved that it was necessary. Not only that it was good, but it was necessary in order to wrap certain plot lines up, in order to give a little bit more backstory to the grabber, or Bill, if you want to call him that. And just express a lot more of the continuous character development that the first movie kind of kick-started, but never got enough time to explore properly. But I was surprised in a second way as well. Because as I was watching the movie, for probably the first half of the movie, maybe even like a little more than that, I was thinking to myself, this movie is good, but I feel like it didn't need to be a Black Phone sequel. Like, it could have been its own thing separate from Black Phone. You could have easily had the same basic idea for the story, and you could have it work without it being connected to Finn, the grabber, any of this stuff. And I was thinking, like, okay, would this have been better as its own thing rather than as a sequel to the first movie in terms of just overall, like, vibe and all. Basically, the question just kind of came down to, do I think that that it being a sequel to The Black Phone was taking away from it more than anything? And for, again, like the first half, maybe a little more, I was thinking, yeah, I probably do. I feel like this would have been better as its own thing. They would just have to have changed around a few things, and obviously names and whatnot. The killer would have to be rebranded, but it could have worked, I feel like, as its own thing. But then, like, the later half, and just kind of later, the rest of the film after that point, really hammered it in to such a degree that it really couldn't have worked as anything else. Because so much of it started so deeply and impactfully connecting um, to the first movie, that it became impossible to separate. And I'm saying that like I'm glad to be proven wrong, that it's a good thing that I was proven to be wrong, because I feel like this movie like impressed me a lot more than I would have expected. It does a lot of the same stuff as the first film, just kind of scaled up. And while it definitely plays around with the tropes that have been set in motion over the decades by all these classic horror films, such as, again, Nightmare on Elm Street, and uh, oh my god, my mind is blanking. Um, oh my god, what the fuck? The Jason movies. You know what I mean. My mind is completely farting here. But yeah, even though it takes inspiration from these films, and very clearly there's a lot of like very on its sleeve like ideas here, it doesn't ever feel like it's just a straight up mimicry. It never feels like it's a singular um kind of issue, for lack of a better way to put it. Instead, it feels natural. It feels believable. And I really think it works in pretty much every way, to all degrees. There's also other parts of it that weren't, I don't think, really notable in the first film, but I like that they included here. Obviously, the discussion that this movie has regarding Christianity is fascinating, because it doesn't really take either side. It shows that there's good and bad to both sides of the argument. That being too Christian can cause you to be, kind of a terrible person. But it can also give you genuine hope and happiness as well. It shows Christianity as something that can, save people's lives, but also as a tool that can be used against people. And I think that's the most fair like way to showcase this in a movie without like seeming, preachy or one way or the other, honestly. I'm also surprised that none of the main cast ended up dying. I really thought that um, Armando was going to die, because it seemed like it was setting up for that. And then, like, when he was dragged into the lake, I'm like really convinced he's going to die. And then, no, he survives. They managed to get him out in time, and he survives, and all of them do. Like, the other two counselors are like dragged along the ice and stuff, but they survive. The dad survives despite jumping into the lake to help out. Everyone actually lives, because this isn't really that kind of movie, I think. It's not a movie about like the current characters being killed off by the villain. Although there was some crazy shit that probably should have killed some of these characters. How did Gwen survive the entire blood spiral thing that happened? What the fuck was that? Um, but despite everything, no one died. And because this movie is more about taking back that power. Like, obviously, there's the aspect of, like, an oppressor and how their actions can always stay in your mind. And with this, and especially with Gwen's storyline in the movie, which is the primary one, she is the main character of this, unlike in the first film where it was Finney. Um, she gets to save the day by gaining that confidence back and taking back her sense of self from an abuser who is, taking it away from her. Finn goes through the same thing. He has to deal with the same thing. And along the way, they even find out, like, these truths about the past. And they learn and grow a lot more. Because Finn turning to marijuana is he basically was following in his father's footsteps, as Gwen said. Like his father had turned to their father had turned to drinking after the mother's death, and he had a lot of self-blame, and Finn felt like there was more he could have done, that he didn't really save anyone, which again Gwen also ended up feeling a bit. But because of all the other growth, Gwen was able to get through that a lot quicker. She didn't need to have this entire arc about it. and that's what I kind of meant when I was like saying that, like, the character arcs that these characters are going through, like, this movie was necessary to kind of conclude them and settle things out. There were some things after the last movie with a lot of the growth and all that wasn't quite left there, that wasn't quite, like, finalized. Especially with the father and finding out about all this shit. And so I'm glad that that was settled. I'm glad that Finn and Gwen were able to get their closure. It just felt like this really wrapped everything up neatly in a bow. The effects were really good. Ethan Hawke was as phenomenal as ever. The kids were great. Like, all the actors were great. I really liked just... I liked the... How do I put it? The vibes of it. It just, like, felt, like, really entertaining to watch. And I was invested pretty much the whole time. So, yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. Also, Gwen had the best insults. Just saying. Like, she really knocked that out of the park. And there were some things that they just didn't do that I'm really glad that they didn't. Like I said, with the deaths and all, I really expected Mondo to die. It, like, felt like it was setting up for that and everything. But no, they kind of flipped it on its head. It's like, no, he's not going to die, actually. He's going to survive. And then, again, the father learning, and just everyone learning everything pretty quickly. And believing in it. Especially Mondo. It felt really good that we didn't have to waste any time with that. The pacing in the first half, like I said, could have been better. It was very much feeling like the almost the entire first half, again, maybe a little more, was set up for everything to come after. And to a degree, you could say it was, but it felt a little slow at first until it really got going. I think the really big turning point was when everybody found out. Once everybody found out and believed because they saw what they saw, that's when things took the real big turn for the better. And the movie really kicked into high gear. Yeah, this ended up being very good. Compared to the first film, I don't think I would say it's necessarily better or worse. Because it does some different things, and obviously playing around with the supernatural element makes it feel very different than the first movie. Even though the first movie, again, did have some supernatural stuff to it as well, of course. But I still feel like just, it had a different overall feeling. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this film. I still liked it. Um, maybe I'll have a better view on it later on, like after, like once this actually comes to YouTube. Maybe I'll know more about how I truly feel. But for now, just, based off of just having finished watching it, it's like, yeah, it's really good. But I don't know if I would say it's better or not than the first one yet. I think, too early for me to say that. I need to think about it more, maybe see it again. We'll see. But yeah, that all being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I would love to hear your thoughts on the film and just generally what you thought of the new elements to it, how it like incorporated the supernatural a lot more, etc., etc. The the blood vortex moment was wacky as fuck. But tell me what you thought of that too, I guess. But yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. Really, I think that there's not really much else to discuss. So yeah, just let me know what you thought of the film, and we will continue this with tomorrow's reaction as well. So yeah, just a reminder, all of these are going to be like each day. If you're watching on Patreon, you're just seeing them go up every day. If you're watching on YouTube a week later, same. You're just watching them go up every single day along with the normal series reactions. And so, yeah, I'm not going to spoil what they are ahead of time, but like I said, unless I forget, I will mention in the afterthoughts of Fridays what the theme will be for the next one. So, that being said, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.